This episode of Family Trips is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada, because going big never goes out of style. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Here we go. Hi, Bashi.
Hi, Sufi.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. What are you up to
Nice.
this weekend?
What am I up to this weekend, or what did I do this weekend?
I don't know. Which one do you want to answer?
Well, last weekend, we've got a friend, Case Clay, who's in the
One of the
horse
all-time
business.
greats.
Yeah. And he was out in LA for a race. And so Mackenzie and I went out to the Santa Anita racetrack with him. And it was awesome. We went into the winner's circle, even though we didn't have a winner there. But
Did you wager? Did you make any wagers?
I did make some wagers. I won on the first race and then lost every other race.
What did you wager? What did you win?
Bless you.
Thank you.
I wagered 20 to win 50.
For people who are listening, that I have a horse with me. You wagered what to win what?
20 to win 50.
That's not bad.
Yeah, although then it only paid out 40 because odds, you don't lock in odds when you bet on a horse race. You sort of bet them and then the odds will keep changing until the race goes off and your bet goes with those odds. It's not like sports wagering.
Sorry to jump in real quick, but remember years ago I went to Ireland with Alexi and her sister and two of her best friends and all of their boyfriends. I was a boyfriend at the time. And we went to Ireland. And the reason we went to Ireland is one of them was dating an Irish fella. And it was sort of his job to show us Ireland. Mm-hmm. And we realized that he was, his goal was to just bet on horses. And so he would keep telling us, oh, I want to take you to this really nice pub. And it would always just be like down a really ugly road. And it would just be it was like an OTB. We were constantly just going to
off-track betting.
Yeah. And he would tell us, the other three, American Yanks, as they call us, posh.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And he would say, oh, do you want me to do the voice?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Oh, let me tell you about this horse over here. That's the horse you want to bet on. And so he would he would tell us which horse to bet on, and we'd all bet on the horse. And then a different horse would win, and he'd be like, bad luck. What can you do, boys? You can't win them all. And then he would go up and trade in his thing, and he'd win. And it turned out like he was just basically using us to change those odds you were talking about.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So he was, and then we were like, hey, well, who'd you pick? He's like, at the last minute, I had an inkling about a different horse. Oh, sorry, couldn't get you the boys. Hey.
Always with the inklings.
Just like, him and his inklings. But yeah, he was always walking out with a fat wad of cash, and meanwhile we were just, I don't know, getting sick in these leaky castles. Don't stay. I haven't complained enough about Irish castles over the.
I mean, you
have
might
we talked about Irish castles on the pod yet?
I think we have. I think we have. Yeah.
Very dank.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know how you've never read any books about Irish kings, and I think that's the dead giveaway that they weren't living as high on the hog as.
Yeah. You could get an Irish castle if you want one. You could probably get one.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of, the Steelers, our beloved Pittsburgh Steelers, are going to play a game in Ireland next year.
Yeah. Which is crazy that Northwestern, our university that we went to, they played a football game there a couple years ago, and we went. And now the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to play a game there.
Kind of nutty. I think it'll be a hard sell for me to get away to go to Ireland for a football game.
TBD for me. I'm just waiting for the NFL to put out their schedule.
I hope you D to go.
Yeah, I mean, I would. I would certainly like to. It was a blast the last time we were there.
Here we go, Steelers. Let's give them a horror. Get an inkling the Steelers are going to win. Oh, here we go. I hope our Irish listeners are enjoying this, because I certainly am enjoying doing it.
Yeah.
You do yours real quick.
Well, how much did you wager on the Steelers?
Well, I had an inkling the Steelers are going to win, so I wagered a fair amount of money.
All right, I guess I'll do the same.
Oh, yours is better. I mean, I feel like I feel like I set the template for you by going first, and either way, a win's a win. Congrats, Pashi.
Yeah. So lovely day out at the races. Also, Mackenzie is, she's an equestrian, but she's not into horse racing. She's a little dicey on the whole thing.
Makes sense.
And so she's not been to a race, and wasn't watching in the middle of the races because she's very worried that something's going to happen, that, a horse will be injured, have to be put down, all those sorts of things.
Is the best way to, now, I'm a little ignorant to the way things work. When you're at a horse race and you don't want to watch it, do you put on blinders?
No, you could, I suppose.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, but it's just one more thing to carry. But that track is gorgeous. Like, you look out at the San Gabriel Mountains, and in terms of a backdrop, it's I don't know if there's a prettier track in the world.
Great.
So yeah,
that's all lovely.
So that was nice, and
glad to hear it. Hey, we talk about it, we hint at it a little bit, but Wilmer and Freddie, fantastic guests that are coming up.
Yeah.
And you and Wilmer, you worked together for a year on that 70s show.
Yeah, we did 2 years, and you cut me off at the knees right at the beginning of this, and you say we can't talk about it.
Oh yeah, I do.
So we didn't talk about it at all.
That's why I feel bad about it. So okay. I'm making up for it. But it was very nice. He was lovely then and lovely now.
Oh my gosh, yeah, one of the all-time classics. Like, now, I see him on promos for his show, and he's always like very serious and tough, and but he's a real scamp. He's when you see him out in the world, he just gets this little smile, and I hope Wilmer wouldn't mind my saying, but he's one of the more adorable people I've ever met. I feel like, and he's tough and strong, cool, and all that, but also, man, he's a real sweetie. Yeah.
Hey, we would like to give another call out to our listeners for stories, questions. As a reminder, you can either, email them in, or you can go to speakpipe.com/familytripspod. That's really the best place. We want to hear your voices. speakpipe.com/familytripspod. And
but I think also, we've mentioned Wilmer already, but we didn't mention Freddie, because we got two guests.
What a gent!
Yeah,
Freddie is.
Yeah, and these two guys, good buddies. They've known each other for a while. They're just starting a podcast, and they're a delight.
So do enjoy them, and we will. I feel like it's weird when you wrap up an intro. We're also, as soon as you listen to the song, we're going to be the next voices you hear as well. So
right.
Don't be upset that we're saying the intro's over.
Family trips with the Meyers brothers. Family trips with the Meyers brothers. Here we go.
Here we go.
It's the Meyers boys.
Josh and Seth.
This is very exciting because we've had former SNL cast members on, and Josh is always like, "Ugh, you guys are going to talk about SNL," and so let me just lay it out. I don't want to hear any '70s show stories.
But
it's all we are.
It's all we are.
Damn it!
When you look, it's Wilmer's breakout role. It's right here in his little bio.
It says in his bio, it's your breakout role.
Yes.
Now, it's lovely to see you both. I do feel like, because this is a trips-based podcast, I want to start with the fact that we have read you guys met on a long flight.
Yeah, we did. Freddie, and you wanna set up that romantic escapade?
Yeah.
We actually met a couple of times before, just in social spaces in LA, but we really got to talking on a flight to London.
From LA.
From LA. Yeah, from LA. Remember back when they used to fly direct? I don't know if they do that anymore, but yeah,
Someone
it was like
does
direct.
That.
Yeah, it was like direct 13 hours, and we just talked. We talked and realized that we had so much in common. I think we also realized that we really needed it. We really needed to. I don't think that there was a lot of other Latino actors that we necessarily talked to in that capacity, and so there was a lot that I guess we needed to get off our chest, right, Wilmer? Would you say?
Yeah, no, I would also say like as I walk in and I'm sitting, we're like sitting together, like randomly. Like it wasn't like, oh, you're sitting over there, so we should sit together. Like no, it was like we were sitting together. It was like such an arranged marriage, you know. And so so I sit down and I'm like, dude, how you been? Da da da. And as soon as we started, we're like, you gonna drink something? Am I gonna drink?
Yeah.
You gonna? He's like, yeah, I guess. What are you gonna have? What are you gonna order? I'm like, I don't know. And then cut to, we didn't sleep like not even 25 minutes. Like we literally talked.
Yeah,
All
you guys
the
were
way.
you were met at the gate by the British authorities.
Yeah.
MI6 pulled us off. Yeah.
It was MI6. Wow, they got the big
It
boys.
got heavy. It got very heavy on that flight.
Oh man, I'm so glad I wasn't sitting like behind you guys. Be like talking the entire flight. Like I get mad. I get mad if I'm on like
man, you would have popped your head in. You would have been like, "Hey guys, what's up?"
Posh would have Karen'd you so hard. Now, were you cognizant at some point during this 13-hour flight? Did you look at one another and say, "Wow, look at us"? Like this is uncommon.
I think it was 6.5 hours in when we were like, do you want to like do you want to take a nap or something? And like the other one's like, I'm cool. I'm like, all right. So, and I don't know if we're ever going to admit who was really sleepy or not, you know?
Yeah.
But we were bloodshot by the time we got there. But it was great. I mean, but to Freddie's point, I mean, we literally cover our lifetimes and realize that there was so much correlation on the parallels of our careers, of all the different things that we have kind of endured or seen or through it from the coming to the opportunity to like the breaks to the rejections. I mean, there was just so much that we talked that we realized we were very alike.
I think there's that thing as well where you kind of have to find somebody on your level to complain to, lest you seem like someone who's not grateful.
That's right. Dude.
So
Seth, you just nailed that so hard because we've had dinners where like, look, I don't want to sound ungrateful.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to sound like a guy who doesn't appreciate what he's got, you know? But like, you know, it's like when you can be a little petty, you can be a little petty.
A little petty's nice.
Yeah. I bet you guys were business class or better going to London as well.
Oh yeah.
We were on network money, Josh. We were on network money. What do you expect?
Yeah. And not only complaining, but like nuances. You know, there are certain nuances that other people wouldn't understand. You know, that we could only share with each other. And it's sort of like therapy, right? You're kind of holding it in because there's no one else you can share it with. And then when you do get to share it with somebody, it's this massive release, which is kind of what our podcast has been a little bit too, right?
You know, Seth, like you and your SNL guys, you know what I'm saying, Seth?
Well, that's the thing. That's why we stay connected all these years later. You know, you talk and you're like the shorthand of what they've all been through, which is really helpful. I feel like when you landed, I wish the pilot had made an announcement about like, also we've had a very special friendship start on our flight today.
I know.
While we apologize for the 13 hours of straight banter.
Starts with an apology.
We do feel very confident they're going to start a podcast together. How many years ago was that?
My God.
Ooh, man.
I mean, it had to be at least 16 or something because we've known each other for 20
so
plus.
It's taken. It's officially taken as a friendship.
Oh, no, for sure. Yeah. No, we're actually really our friends.
Yeah, that's good.
It wasn't for a corporate convenience, you know. But,
why were you going? I never asked you.
I kid, 13 hours and you didn't ask, what are you going to do when you get to London?
I don't recall. What were you going out there?
I think I was going there for London for press. I believe it was maybe Fast Food Nation, and then I was gonna go to Cannes to meet the rest of the cast for the movie at the Cannes Film Festival. But we were stopping in London first, and
What were you going for? Do you remember, Freddie? Or more importantly, Wilmer, do you remember what Freddie was going for?
No, I would never. I think we're both blacked out. I think at least 11 hours of that are blacked out. That's for sure.
I had a film at the London Film Festival.
All right.
So so we're going over there to go show it.
Does it feel like never having traveled internationally for a film due to the fact that I think it reflects probably on my film work, but does it feel like a vacation when you travel for something like that, or does it just feel like work?
Oh, it's all work. It's all work. I remember my wife was saying, we got to go. I want to go to London, but you've been already. And I'm like, but I didn't really get to do anything. I just worked the whole time.
Yeah.
I just kind of walked around a little bit. But yeah, it's a lot of work, a lot of press.
I actually had made quite a habit of making sure that like if I was going to go someone that far, that like I would have at least a day to like do the touristy stuff and then do the local stuff. And then because at a point of my career, you know, I would fly all the way to New York for the afternoon to do like talk shows and then fly back to LA that same day. And, you know, because of scheduling purposes or whatever. But I've definitely, you know, I learned my lesson right away because it became this thing where I started kind of saying like, oh yeah, I've been to Chicago. And like, it was like airport, you know, town car, morning news, back into the town car. But, you know, like it became that thing. But yeah, I try to sneak in a little fun because, you know, I do love traveling.
Yeah. You know what I did do? I walked to Harrods. You guys ever been to Harrods?
Oh, yeah.
Which is pretty amazing. And I bought some, I have this thing where like my wife and my kids, whenever I go somewhere, I buy Christmas ornaments.
Oh, that's
from the place that I'm at with the year on them. And so when we put our Christmas tree up every year, we put those ornaments and then we get to see what location they came from in the year. So that's
and you're always like, this is the year Daddy left you to go to Denver.
Daddy went to London.
It's funny you say that thing, Wilmer, about when you do a talk show and then leave that night. I don't know. I have no data to back this up, but when I go in someone's dressing room and I say, "What are you doing after the show?" If somebody says, "I'm going right to the airport," I always feel like that's just a worse vibe for a guest to have than if they say, "Oh, I'm going out to dinner with friends," or I feel like I want my talk show to be the thing they do right before they have a nice night out, as opposed to like, you know, you never want somebody in the back of their head to be like, "Gotta go to JFK." There's no traffic.
Like, oh, my bags are in the dressing room.
Yeah.
If this first guest goes long, I'm probably gonna have to run to my gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think one of the important things as I got a little older and wiser and you know how much you give yourself to promoting the stuff that you work so hard to make, is understanding that half of the experience is just try to enjoy it because it's supposed to be fun. I had you know, I met I've talked about this a few times and I actually wrote about this whole section in this book I released, and in that section where I talked about how Robin Williams was doing a guest star of LA Doctors across the soundstage when we were shooting, you know, my sitcom 70s. And he came to visit Kurtwood Smith, you know, who played the dad, right? Red Foreman. And because they had done Dead Poet Society together. So I asked him, hey, any word of advice for a young buck like me, you know? And he said, yes, of course. And he was like, remember and never forget that your fans are going to have 2 to 3 minutes of your time for the rest of their life. What 2 to 3 minutes do you want them to walk away with?
Yeah, man.
And I was like,
really, really good advice.
Right. And then the second was, and remember and never forget that it's supposed to be fun. You know, and like I kind of never forgot the reasoning that if something wasn't fun in the process, that probably there was something off that I need to kind of figure out what's not fitting, you know, and I try to have as much of a good time. But I love going to New York. You know, I love going to New York City and doing the talk show stuff. It's a magical thing, you know. To me, it's still magical. I love coming to visit you guys and do the press and the thing, and you know, it's fun to talk about the stuff that you know you spend so much time.
It's our job to make it fun as well. Hey, we're going to take a quick break and hear from some of our sponsors. This episode of Family Trips is brought to you by Nissan.
Hey, Sufi.
Yeah, Pashy.
What's that thing I always say about going big and it never going out of style?
Oh, I remember. Going big never goes out of style.
Yeah, that's it. And that's why we at Family Trips love partnering with Nissan, because they know that going big never goes out of style, especially when it comes to the 2025 Nissan lineup.
And the Nissan vehicle we want to give a huge shout out to today, the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X.
Sufi, what's that thing I always say about the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X?
Pashy, you always say that no terrain is too tough for the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. It's the most capable Armada ever built.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like your catchphrase.
Yeah, I'm known for saying that, and how could I not? With a new powerful engine, incredible towing capacity, and adventure-ready technology, this is the first Armada to earn the Pro 4X badge.
It's built for the most rugged of terrain thanks to the fact that it's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, which means it's ready to give you the freedom to explore further and to propel your adventures to new heights.
And my favorite part, the Armada's premium interior seats up to 8 passengers. That means we can bring our 6 best friends with us on our next adventure. Let's name them right now.
And we're out of time. So thanks again to Nissan for sponsoring this episode of Family Trips. Explore further with the Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Intelligent four-wheel drive cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions. This episode of Family Trips is brought to you by our friends at Maker's Mark. Hey, Pashi.
Yes, Sufi.
I don't have to tell you that we're partnering with Maker's Mark to celebrate spirited women like Margie Samuels.
You definitely do not, because I made the trip to the Maker's Mark Distillery in Loretto, Kentucky.
The same Maker's Mark that Margie was the co-founder of?
Absolutely, that's the one.
And I believe you brought a spirited woman with you.
I did. This trip. Yeah, my wife, Mackenzie, who, is one of the strongest, toughest gals I know and inspires me with her work ethic every day. She moved out to California to work at a barn and do some training, and then that barn eventually was going to get sold, and she struck out on her own and now has this thriving business where she trains people and rides horses, and she works her tail off. It's really something else.
Also, Margie, shout out, original designer behind the iconic red wax dip.
Yep.
The label and even the Maker's Mark name. You did some dipping while you were there, right, Posh?
I did do some dipping. We were there for a long tour, and we dipped our own bottles, which was very exciting.
You too can celebrate the spirit of women in your life with a free personalized label. To go with a bottle of Maker's Mark, head to makersmarkpersonalized.com and fill in the details in order to create and mail your custom label. Don't forget to grab a bottle of Maker's Mark to go with it. Maker's Mark makes their bourbon carefully. Please enjoy it that way. Maker's Mark Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 45% alcohol. 2025 Maker's Mark Distillery Incorporated, Loretto, Kentucky.
Here we go.
I traveled with my 3.5-year-old. I took her home to see my parents, and that thing about where you 2 to 3 minutes of fans. I feel I'm very good about this. And I was in the airport with my daughter, and it was like ID out in line to the TSA. I've got 2 bags. My daughter's sitting on a rolling suitcase. I've just got that single parent vibe. And this woman came up to me who had a real look about her, the kind of fan where you know that they're going to share a project they're working on. A hat that loudly says I'm in the business, and came over and asked for a selfie, and I was very patient, and I sort of, had to put everything away, was patient while my daughter was sitting there, took a picture. She directed me towards, a YouTube page where I could see some of her work. I said, that sounds wonderful, gotta keep at it and everything. And then I went to my gate, and I saw she was also one gate over, and I had this real moment of, you don't get a second bite of this apple. Like internally, I was like, you're not allowed to come over again. And sure enough, as we were boarding, she walked over again and said, there's one more thing I wanted to say. And it took everything in my bones. I was polite again to not be like,
Yeah. It's tough. It's a tough call.
Yeah.
It's a tough call. It's a really tough call because
it's the mistake you always make is like if you teach her a lesson, that doesn't teach everyone a lesson.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's not like she's going to go and tell everybody else what she learned.
I've had
she might tell everyone else that Seth Meyers
that's the problem. Right? Yeah, she's not going to tell every.
Dude,
He gave me a teachable moment, and for that I'm a fan forever.
Yeah. I've had different versions of this, and I think Freddie can relate to this one too, but I've had different things in my career, right? I did like a little hosting thing. I did mostly acting and a whole thing, right? But when I was doing the show Your Mama on MTV, which by the way, it was a classic. It was like an all-time classic. People really needed that show. That show came at a time where America really needed it. It was a moment where we needed to bring people together. And
there was a lot of mamas were getting away with stuff back then.
Absolutely. It was the Mama Nation. Yeah. So, by the way, because I was in MTV, musicians, like rappers, like hood rappers, really thought that they could just give me their mixtape and it was kind of like do something.
Oh yeah.
You know, so like everywhere I would go, the people, hey man, like, you know, I'm a rapper, you know, and you know, I got my mixtape. I want you to listen to it, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I will. And he goes, I actually have it right here. And then like back then it was like iPads and like CD players, and like they would play me this stuff at the airport. They're like, here. And I'm sitting there like looking at the time and looking at the gate, and I just it's supposed to be fun, and like they have 2 to 3 minutes of your time for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
So
So and then you're like, you are a great rapper.
Yeah.
You're a great rapper. I'm gonna tell everyone.
Yeah.
Someone pitched me a movie idea when I was taking a piss at the Golden Globes.
Wow. Great.
No shit, man.
Yeah.
I went in
And it
there.
was The Brutalist.
I passed. And look at me. Take a
Damn it.
To be fair,
No,
it was a long pitch too. It was a long pitch.
He started to pitch me as I was like going into the bathroom, and I was trying to be polite, like, okay, yeah, no, man, it sounds great. And as I was pissing, he kept on pitching, and I was done, and I turned around, and he was like, so what do you think? I'm like, dude, are you freaking crazy? I'm here taking a piss.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And that was 6 feet under, right?
That was.
Yeah. He pitched me 6 feet under.
Yeah.
and the rest is history.
All right. So, Freddie, 2 siblings.
2 siblings, yeah, 2 older brothers.
Where do you? 2 older brothers. How much older?
My middle brother is 6-7 years older than me. My oldest brother is about 8, 9. Yeah, I came. I came
big
way
old
later.
gap.
Yeah, big gap. I was the mistake after a few beers.
How were they? How were they with your arrival? Would you say your older brothers?
With my arrival, I think they were tasked as surrogate fathers to me right from the beginning, because they were so much older than me, and it was that dynamic as I was growing up. I'm very familiar with your dynamic because I watched the show, but it wasn't that at all. They were very paternal to me as I was growing up.
Were they good at it? Were they good father brothers?
Yeah, they were. They were really good at it. They, you know, and I was the youngest. I got into a lot of trouble when I was young, and they were really good about stepping in. They were really good at being sort of a buffer to my dad and not allowing my dad to know a lot of the stupid things I was doing.
Right.
You know, now they're wonderful.
And you guys grew up. You grew up in Lincoln Park.
I grew up in Chicago.
Yeah, in Lincoln Park.
I was born in Lincoln Park,
Okay.
and then when I was about 4 or 5, I moved to an area called Bucktown.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah.
And I grew up in Bucktown, which is Bucktown, Wicker Park, Logan Square, Northwest Side, and then I went to Lincoln Park High School. When I went to high school. Yeah. Are you Chicago? Yeah, you spent some time in Chicago, right?
we were born in Evanston, and then both went back to Northwestern. And then I lived.
No way, man.
Yeah, we grew up more in the East Coast, but when I went back right after college, I lived in Lincoln Park, and I loved it.
Where'd you live?
I was Clark and Oakdale, and I was Armitage and Sheffield.
Yeah, dude, I was born on Armitage and Hosted when
right there.
I was born. Yeah, right there.
Like on the street corner?
I mean, that cleaners that was on that corner before.
They had a deal. They had a deal that day.
Yeah. So when my parents came from Puerto Rico in the 60s and they migrated there, that back in the 60s, that was predominantly like Puerto Rican and Black. And then in about like 1980, 82, they, you know, became a little more gentrified. And then we moved west to sort of the Bucktown, Humboldt Park area.
Did your family stay in Chicago?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, everyone's still there. No
your brothers as well?
My brothers as well. Yeah, my brothers eventually moved to like Logan Square.
Gotcha.
Because, you know, Bucktown became like Soho.
They really did.
Moved west.
The last time we were there, I think I can't remember. Do you remember the name of that hotel, Josh?
The Roby.
The Roby, yeah.
I think it's in Wicker Park. Yeah. It's on a street. It's it looks like the Flatiron Building in New York almost. It's like
one of those. Yeah.
Milwaukee, Damon, and
that feeling.
Yeah. Oh, that's a hotel now, huh?
Yeah, that's cool.
I didn't know that. Yeah, my wife grew up in that area. That's Wicker Park. So that's like North Avenue and Milwaukee and Damon, and she grew up just a little west of that.
Was Puerto Rico a place you would go back and visit when you were young?
No.
Okay.
No, I went once, and it's funny because like I've watched your show and I hear you guys talking about family trips. When I was a kid, we never took a family trip. Like we never took a vacation. The only time I was ever on a plane when I was a kid, it was when I was 10 years old, and it was to Puerto Rico, and it was for a funeral. Okay.
Yeah.
It was for my uncle's funeral. And so traditionally in Puerto Rico, when someone dies, the funeral takes place in the house.
Right.
And
Wow.
they keep the body in the house.
Yeah.
And so I was 10 years old. It was total culture shock for me coming out of Chicago in Puerto Rico. It was my mother's side of the family who were all from New York, who I didn't grow up around. And then all of a sudden I'm 10 years old and I'm waking up to my uncle's body
Whoa.
in the living room.
I love it. It's like, good news, you're taking a plane for the first time. Bad news, everything else.
Everything else. Yeah,
You wake up to a dead body. Yeah.
Did you, and what was it just too expensive to go back to Puerto Rico, or do you feel like your parents just didn't feel the need to go back?
Yeah, my dad was, yes, it was too expensive.
Right.
My parents were just factory workers in Chicago. But my dad he was a compulsive worker. He would have a week off from work and we'd go, hey, well, what are you going to do, Dad? You going somewhere? He's like, nah, your uncle needs his living room painted. I'm going to go help him paint. Your cousin needs to move. We're going to go help your cousin move. And I'm like, that's your vacation? Like to go help somebody paint or move? Like, yeah. And that was it. That was vacation for us.
So you had a lot of family local, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My dad had a few sisters and a brother who moved to Chicago as well. And so I come from a really big extended family. And on my mom's side of the family, I have 13 uncles and aunts.
Whoa.
Yeah, but they were all in New York and in Puerto Rico. So we were the only family that moved to Chicago. And I met them for the first time. So that was another family trip that I took when I was about 17. It was the first time, 16, 17. It was the first time I went to New York and I got to meet all of my cousins for the first time. So you can imagine 13 uncles and aunts, multiply that by like 2-3 kids each. All of a sudden I'm at a wedding with like 50 cousins who are all like,
yeah,
I'm your cousin. I'm your cousin. I'm your cousin.
Was it overwhelming or so exciting?
It was exciting. It was exciting. Yeah. I mean, a little overwhelming because you're trying to place the faces of all of your cousins with your uncles and how it relates in the family structure and the family tree. But it was exciting. It was this whole other side of my family that I never knew existed. And this is like pre-internet. I mean, look at us. We're like, it's like George Jetson here, right? We could be on.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like that back then, right? So if you had cousins, you had family elsewhere, unless you're like, I remember long distance, like, whoa, long distance costs so much money to get on and make a long distance call. Unless it was that or writing letters, you really didn't have any.
Yeah, you only made that phone call in Christmas. I mean, that's the only time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's so funny because if you only make a phone call on Christmas, it's the worst phone call. It's the worst time. Especially as a kid, like when you got dragged away from like Christmas stuff to talk to an aging relative.
All your new toys are spread out, and it's like, come talk to Grandma. It's like, I don't know. We have nothing in common.
I know.
Do you guys still have family in Evanston?
No, we were the only ones, and so we had family in Massachusetts and we had family in Pittsburgh, but no one's really anywhere anymore. Wouldn't you say?
People are places.
I think I feel pretty confident they're all there. I'm going to say everybody to feel better about not seeing them.
I mean, our grandparents are gone, but we've got uncles and aunts. And cousins.
And our parents are still in New Hampshire in the house we grew up in.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
just went back. Josh and I were just complaining a little bit. Just went back. Everything's been thrown out, which I feel like was okay 50 years ago. But like in 2025, I was like, I'll go check the attic. I was looking for something. I'll go check the attic. They're like, we threw everything in the attic out. I'm like, to what end?
I know why.
Right.
You're supposed to be the vault of memories. Why we got here for an
It's like it's an attic. You weren't. It was fine.
If they said we put a sauna,
he was looking for his baseball cards.
The thing, the classic thing people look for.
Right.
By the way, you would have had probably a lot of invested property in those baseball cards.
It was a bad time to buy, I will say. It wasn't like, it wasn't like, I was looking for my Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I don't know why I ever left it with mom and dad.
How do you balance that? I mean, how often do you guys get to go home and see your parents?
I will say I go home a lot less because I have kids, whereas Josh is a man of the
But you
world.
also have a daily show. I mean, you have a nightly show.
That gets in the way. That gets
it's 4 nights a week.
Yeah.
Josh goes home Friday.
I love, that's the other day I heard my wife say to somebody, well, Seth only works 4 days a week. I'm like, what in the world? What nerve? Do you know how good my life is for somebody in show business? Also, I have a podcast. I have multiple podcasts.
Josh, the sitcom days were fun. You got a week off every 2 to 3.
Oh, it was insane. It was insane.
Awesome.
Also, on 70 show, Soof, they by the time I got there, which was the last season, they had our stand-ins would do all the camera blocking, and you could change everything, but there was essentially a day off because at that point they had streamlined the process, and you guys were all muckety mucks and throwing your weight around, and we're probably like, we want Mondays off or whatever it was, and then you'd get there and they would.
I want 2 days off. That's what I used to say all the time. I want a 2 day instant off day for me. And everyone's like, well, Wilmer.
Yeah, it was probably like a 24-hour work week, I feel like.
Yeah.
How about Freddie? Was 6 Feet Under? How many days was it per episode? How many shooting days?
8 business days.
So that's a real that's real work.
That's real work.
Yeah, I mean that was 8, and we only did about in the first season was like 13 episodes, and then towards the end I think it became like 10, maybe 11. I think that's kind of normal now. Cable's like right 10, 8.
Yeah, no, I think. I mean, certainly the 70s show days. I feel like what are there 3 or 4 shows that do that many episodes? If they're lucky.
How many episodes did you do a season? Like
we used to do
20, I think.
20. How many? We did 25, right? Did we do 25?
I mean, that.
I don't know. I would have said 22, but you were there for a lot longer.
No, we would do 25 a season. That's why we got to 200 so quick.
All right.
Well, not so quick. It took 8 years together,
but still, 200.
Yeah.
That's like like in baseball, they say no pitcher will win 200 games again because they just take them out of the. That's like what it feels like now. It's like 200.
Yeah.
What was 6 Feet Under your first big show, Freddie?
No, I all through the 90s I was doing movies.
Gotcha.
I started doing movies in 94. When I say I turned pro, I did a movie called Dead Presidents and A Walk in the Clouds with Keanu Reeves in like 94. I did this Brian Hegelin movie called Payback. Just all through the movies was just doing films. And then 6 Feet Under came in like 01. And then that was, it became the classic that it became. And that's when people really started to know who I was.
I do want to give a quick shout out to Payback, which I think is an underrated, fantastic film. Yeah.
I think so. I thought it was a good movie.
It's a really fun. It is that thing where like Mel Gibson just loves movies where he just gets the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah. And it was Brian Hegelin's. It was his first movie.
Was it really?
Yeah.
It's like one of those movies. If I'm remembering, it feels like very. I like movies with that color palette, which is just like very like that like blue tint.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything's like
gloomy.
feels like like cold and gray.
Something bad's gonna happen any minute.
Yeah,
the entire movie. Yeah.
Is Chris Christopherson in that movie? Am I remembering?
I believe so. Yeah, I've done 2 movies with Chris. I did that one, and I did this other movie called Dreamer with him and Kurt Russell. So
wow, that's a good group.
Twice. Yeah, he was awesome. I remember he had invited me to go see him and Willie Nelson play in Kentucky. And I was trying desperately to go. I was shooting that day. I was like, wow, I got an invite from Chris Christopherson to be backstage with him and Willie Nelson, and I never got to go. He was awesome. He told me this great story. I was asking him how he started doing what he was doing, and Chris said, I was a helicopter pilot. And oh man, I don't recall if he said it was Johnny Cash or someone big like that. He said he kept trying to break into the industry and he was having no luck. So he flew his helicopter, and don't quote me on this, I think he said Johnny Cash, and flew his helicopter to Johnny Cash's house and landed in his backyard. And was like, I write music. Here's my music.
Wow. And here Wilmer is complaining that somebody gives him a mixtape
Yeah.
You could have a helicopter land in your front lawn.
Listen, Seth, in his defense, that took more than 2 to 3 minutes, okay?
That's true. Yeah. Once he showed up.
Also, anytime someone's putting their earbuds in your ears, it's a little
that's
that's true, right?
It was also before COVID, so we were more resilient, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Sure. I mean, back in the early 2000s, the stuff celebrities were putting in their ears, it was anything went.
Anything.
I will, it's funny, because I get asked, I do a Q&A in my audience, and people ask me, sometimes everybody say, like, do you have any advice? And that Robin Williams advice is really good. And maybe I'll steal that, because I always feel like I'm at, I don't know what to say. But there is that, I would say, like, to my younger self, like, everything that sounds, and it sounds like, Freddie, you maybe just logistically couldn't do it. Anything that sounds like you shouldn't miss it, you probably shouldn't miss it. Like, no one 20 years later is like, you know what I'm happy about? Got a very good night's sleep 20 years ago when the other option was Willie Nelson and
Willie Nelson in Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've said yes to most things, but I do think every now and then, and I'm certainly, I think I've done it way too many times where I'm like, I think I'll just go home. And it's like, why'd I go home? Especially now that I have children and I legally have to go home.
How old are your kids?
8, 6, and 3.
Oof.
Yeah. How about you, Freddie?
You're in it. My oldest is 30.
God.
And my youngest is 26.
Just for the people who are only listening, Freddie looks great. Freddie looks 30. So good for 30 and 26.
He's a wonder of the world. I mean,
truly.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I was a teen dad. So,
all right, that helps.
So that may have something to do with it.
I have some cousins who were they were like teen parents, and it really, like, now their kids are like basically your kids' age, and they're just thriving. Like, I feel like it was really hairy when it started, but now their kids are old and they still have like a whole, like, they can like do shit because they're not like old, they're not old and broken. Like, I had my first at 42. It's going to be a disaster when my kids are in college.
You had your first at 42. I had my first one at 40. Yeah, 41. So.
Yeah. And yours is little, right, Wilmer?
Yeah, mine's 4. Right. And we just announced it, but we are expecting our second one.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It still works. Still works.
Yeah, it still works.
It still works. One for the good guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And by the way, and I say this as a friend, nobody who knows you thought it still worked, and we're so proud of you.
Well, that's very kind. But I really beat myself up over these things. These things really keep me up.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break and hear from some of our sponsors.
Support comes from Delete Me. Hey, Pashi.
Yes, Sufi.
I don't like people in my personal data.
Oh, neither do I.
And I also don't have the time to get into the worldwide weird, as you call it, and remove all my personal data. But guess who can do it for you?
Delete Me?
Yeah. They make it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. You know what? The amount I get texts, little scam texts that say things like,
"Oh man,
hey, you haven't paid your tolls."
Yep.
And then if you click the little thing, you're in trouble because now these data brokers have your information and they're not going to use it for good stuff.
Yeah. Or they're like, hey, post office trying to bring you a package. Click on this link. Don't click on that link, man. That's not how the post office.
You know who does click on that link?
Who's that?
My father-in-law and my brother-in-law.
They probably don't have any data left.
No, I mean, literally no. Oh, well, here's the thing. Everybody has their data.
Oh, right.
I feel like their identity has been stolen so many times, it's not even valuable to the people who've stolen it.
I heard that Tom and Tolia is not even their names anymore.
No, they're constantly finding, they just get text being like, you're this now. You know what? I'm going to make sure these guys are hip to the many benefits of Delete Me. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners, get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/trips and use promo code TRIPS at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/trips and enter code TRIPS at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/trips. Code, tell them, Pashi.
TRIPS.
This episode of Family Trips is brought to you by Nissan. Hey, Pashi.
Yes, Sufi.
Let's talk about some things that never go out of style.
Ooh, I love this game. Like
Pasta.
bomber jackets,
High top shoes. Jean jackets.
baseball hats.
You know what else never goes out of style?
What's that?
Going big. That's why we at Family Trips love partnering with Nissan, because they know that going big never goes out of style, especially when it comes to the 2025 Nissan lineup. And the Nissan vehicle we want to give a huge shout out to today, the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X.
No terrain is too tough for the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. It's the most capable Armada ever built. With a new powerful engine, incredible towing capacity, and adventure-ready technology, this is the first Armada to earn the Pro 4X badge.
It's built for the most rugged of terrain thanks to the fact that it's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, which means it's ready to give you the freedom to explore further and to propel your adventures to new heights. So thanks again to Nissan for sponsoring this episode of Family Trips. Explore further with the Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Intelligent four-wheel drive cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
Here we go.
So, Wilmer, Miami, but not born in Miami.
I was born in Miami. Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
But then moved to Venezuela, yeah?
Yes. So my mom and dad met in Miami. They fell in love in Miami and got married there. And then they had my sister and me, right? And then when I turned 3 years old, which was roughly in 1983, if you guys remember much about this or just read about it because we were so young back then, but in the early 80s, Venezuela's economy was just booming, right? I mean, it's the number one reserve of oil in the world and the third largest producer of oil in the world. It was a very rich country at that time. So nobody really left Venezuela, people just went to Miami for vacation and came back home, right? And it was a different era, so my dad felt the agriculture industry was big for him, and he thought, well, let's go back to where the work is. So we moved back from Miami to Venezuela, and I was raised in the middle of the country, like in a small little, really small little town that had one movie theater, and they played RoboCop all year round. It was like that kind of small town, Little did I
It was called the RoboCop Theater.
It was called in their
Yeah.
defense. In their defense, it was called the RoboCop Theater.
Yeah. Also Kurtwood Smith, wasn't he? Wasn't
Yes.
Kurtwood Smith?
Oh, yeah,
the RoboCop?
Yes.
Yeah.
This whole story is
Can
crazy,
you fly,
right?
Bobby?
Can you? Remember? I don't know if you remember, Josh, but I used to call Kurtwood and leave voicemails on his greeting machine and say, "Hey, Kurtwood, I have one thing to say. Can you fly, Bobby?" And I would just hang up. And I would do it way too many times because at that time I never knew when enough was enough.
Right.
So it was just unnecessary. But yeah, so I was born in a very small little town in Venezuela. I was 3 years old. We spent about 10, almost 11 years of our life in Venezuela. And then when Chavez tried to take the power by force, in Venezuela, and he did the coup on the government, my dad looked at everything around and economy was just nosediving. My dad said, I think we're going to have to go back home, right? So we came back to the United States. We came back to Miami at that point. And you talk about family trips, and you were talking about all those, those memories. I remember that I can never forget this one family trip because, I had forgotten what it was like to even be in the United States. And I just
How old were you then when you came back?
13.
Okay,
13.
gotcha.
And I had just grown up with, the Bruce Willises and the Mel Gibsons and the RoboCops of the world, you know what I mean? Like the Back to the Futures, the Charlie's Angels, the Hulk TV show, the Spider-Man live action TV show, like all the syndicated stuff that was 20 years old here. Like we were getting syndicated in Spanish there. Zorro, Chips, I grew up with all this. So American culture was in my brain. So when I came to the United States, the first thing I wanted to see was what a burger looked like. I had never seen a burger. We didn't have burgers where I grew up, But the thing that was really interesting is my dad said, okay, well, we're not going to stay in Miami. We're going to drive cross country and we're going to go to Los Angeles because he had a brother, right? That, they lived in Los Angeles. And he rented this Ford Taurus, a white one, a station wagon. We embarked into this cross country tour, and it was like a crash course on what America really was,
Yeah.
And to me, it was incredibly magical, right? You see the trucks with the flags in the back, and it was yeah,
Yeah.
Then I understood the meaning of so many different things, but I will say that it was
were you disappointed?
It's American flags.
Were you disappointed that you didn't see a single RoboCop?
I thought America would have had already hoverboards,
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
For sure. But so we went cross country, and every truck stop was like chef kiss of like the different faces of America, right? And I grew up loving it all. I growing up, loving these, the coconut shrimp from Sizzler, and like the bread from Red Lobsters. Like these were the fancy meals that we had, along the way.
Does that mean you were excited right away about the idea of moving back to the States, or was it scary?
It was scary because I was failing of my English classes in Venezuela, right? So I literally was like, oh, I'll never have to speak English. I live in Venezuela, Cut to kids, come on in, have a seat. We're moving to America. I said, excuse me? We're moving to America. I said, but I don't know how to speak English. He goes, but you were taking classes. I'm like, but nobody learns it, It was a frantic realization that I was about to, come to the United States and I have to go and learn how to speak a different language. So I asked my dad, how are we going to do this? We don't even speak English. And he looked at me, he said, get in the car. It's just like, I can't even explain it to you. You're going to have to learn. It is what it is. So we got to America and it was probably single-handedly the most petrifying experience, I think,
Of course. How much younger was your sister?
She was 1 year younger than me.
Okay.
And then we had a younger one. So she was, I think, at the time, 7 or 6 years old. Okay. Or maybe, no, she was about 5 or so when she got with us here. And it was the 3 of us. But, my first job was to learn how to speak English like ASAP, right? That was my first job. And because it was like somebody's at the door. Who's gonna answer the door? I guess I'll go. Hello. It was like it was that type of thing. And then you go to the you go to the restaurant, right? And here comes the waiter, and it's like, all right, I gotta read the menu, So that was kind of my first gig for the house. But yeah, that road trip was unbelievable. I remember. Having my first Slim Jim and thinking to myself, how is this medically possible? You
can still consider that today.
Yeah. It is everybody, we all we get excited about now are like apps and stuff, but I love the days when we were inventing stuff like Slim Jim. We could just actually enjoy it. Were your parents at that age, do you think they were scared about having to leave Venezuela? Did they see it as... Yeah,
for sure. Look, I think we had
could you tell? Or was it there? Did they try very hard to sort of hide it from you?
They try very hard, but I think, you grow up in these countries. You grow up with a sense of emotional maturity that, you're kind of sheltered from when you kind of grow up in America. In Venezuela, the news, the 6 o'clock news looks a little different. Yeah. So I kind of was already, already understood that we were coming to America to work, that we came here to start again, start all over again. And they had to sell everything they had, to kind of afford the move. And then when we came out here, my dad had to start from scratch, so I knew that there was a lot of stress. I knew that there was a lot of uncertainty. My dad was always optimistic. My dad was always, laughing and, keeping the music playing loud, So you're kind of like, there's a mirage, that like everything's going to be fine because the energy feels, different. My dad never complained about the struggles. He just put a little dirt on it and kept going, right? And I think that's something I definitely take from him. But I will say that I could see it. You could see it in her eyes. And at 13, your dad tells you, hey, we didn't come here to go to Disneyland, Universal Studios. We came here to work. So I need you to get the education that I never had. And so it got very serious right away. So immediately at 13, 14, I made a promise that I was going to help and I was going to, show up for my family. And dude, like I learned how to speak English like that. I mean, it was just by necessity when you have to. And I had ESL classes in high school, in middle school and high school. And I learned how to speak English through watching I Love Lucy, you know, and because I watched every episode in Spanish. So when I came and watched it in English, I was like, okay, I think I'm kind of piecing together the scenes and picturing what they were saying. Things were kind of like waking up. And then, you know, and then I realized, oh, wait a minute. Ricky Ricardo has an accent? Like, I had no idea. No idea the dudes had an accent, right? And I think I also contribute the fact that I still have an accent to the fact that I watch way too much I Love Lucy. Because my sister has no accent.
That's the best possible reason.
Yeah, it would be funny if your sister talked exactly like Lucille Ball. She's very loud.
But you know, she has no accent. My sister has no accent. Right. So people are like, what are you doing, Wilmer? I'm like, I was playing soccer. She was going to the mall with her white girlfriends.
All right. So, Freddie, you mentioned your parents, because I want to ask both of you this question, but your parents worked in factories. So you are the first one in your family who shows an interest in the arts, or did your older brothers have any interest in it?
My older brother is a dean of students at a university now in Chicago, but he was a DJ when I was growing up.
All right.
In the 80s. And so I guess, you know, it's a form of art, you know,
sure.
DJing, right?
Yeah.
And so like I grew up and he's, you know, 8 years older than me, right? So as far back as I could remember, there was always vinyl in the house, like milk crates of vinyl everywhere. There was always turntables. There was always speakers. Every Friday, I would see him carrying speakers out and bringing speakers back and testing new vinyl. I would go to vinyl shops. You guys remember, I don't know if you were there. You guys remember that record place on Clark? It was on like Clark and like Clark and Diversey.
Yes, I do.
God,
I can't remember.
what was that? God, what was that place? Wax Tracks, was it?
That sounds right.
Yeah. So I used to go to Wax Tracks with my brother when I was like 9, 8 years old. So there was always a lot of music in the house. I had an uncle who I didn't grow up with, who was a singer in the 70s and who tried his hand at acting. But no, I'm pretty much the only artist in my family.
When you got together with sort of your extended family in Chicago, would you do that regularly, and would that be like sort of a picnic situation, or I'm just wondering if like your DJ brother would sort of set up at something like that?
Yes, he would. He DJ'd every single family function. And so in Latino culture, they throw a party for any reason.
Yeah, there's no reason.
There's no reason. Hey,
we throw a party for no reason.
No reason's a great reason.
Yeah, for no reason is a great reason.
And it's Chicago, right? So you live there. You know how small those apartments are sometimes. So you could imagine these apartments with like 100 cousins and aunts and uncles and all in there in these small apartments. My brother DJing in the corner. If it was summertime, it'd be like in somebody's backyard. But there'd be parties for baptisms, for birthdays, for someone graduated. So yeah, it was a really tight knit and big extended family. You know, you've heard of the saying, it takes a village to raise a child, right? And that was very much my family. It was a village, you know, like not only did my mom and my dad raise me, I had aunts and uncles and extended cousins and everyone else who also sort of bestowed their wisdom upon me as I was growing up.
Everyone's responsibility at one of those parties to bring food? Or does somebody take point?
Yeah, I had a couple of aunts who took point.
Okay, gotcha.
And yeah, but people would bring dishes. They'd bring beer. They'd bring rum. Rum was sort of the big rum and Coke.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the Puerto Rican. That's a Puerto Rican H2O.
I don't think I've ever been at a party where I've brought rum or where someone has brought rum. And I feel like my life is a lot
Tell me who you rum with without telling me who you rum with. You know, you know, you're just so telegraphic.
Now, rum, is that another word for Chardonnay?
What would you drink? What would you guys? Like Schlitz? What was your dad?
No, I mean, it's really funny. Like our mom is such a gin and tonic woman. Like that was I would say, if there was a drink that was most often being poured in our home, it was a gin and tonic.
Gin and tonic. Yeah.
To this day. Yeah.
Your dad too? He was
not much of a drinker.
Man?
Not much of a drinker, really.
He'd have a beer.
Yeah.
What about you guys? What about you guys? Are you guys much of a libation?
I'm I think I'm like cooling. I mean, mostly I feel like I'm tapping the brakes because of just age. But I think I'm pretty famously a libation guy.
I've seen that show, man.
The day drinking, day drinking comes from
Seth's
a very
gone
real
pretty
place.
hard into the Negroni world, which I
have,
doesn't agree with me. I don't. There's something in it I don't like. But I'll do like whiskey rocks or Scotch rocks or tequila.
So distinguished, Josh. So distinguished.
Yeah. Old fashioned. Are you an old fashioned man?
I love an old fashioned.
Yeah.
Although I have it. Does this make me sound like a child? I'm very upset when my old fashioned doesn't have that cherry in it.
Oh yes, dude, yes.
Because it's like the Shirley Temple cherry of my youth.
100%.
Because you can't. The thing about the cherry is I enjoy it a great deal, but I can't ask for it. You know.
Right.
As an adult, you don't want to be like, I'll have an old fashioned. Because you feel like a cool older gentleman and be like, old fashioned with the cherry.
Yeah. Seth, I've watched your show, man, but you mix a lot of different alcohols.
Well, for day drinking, we're just mixing alcohol for comedy purposes. And that I wouldn't recommend that. But
oof. Yeah,
look, I feel like you should finish those drinks. I feel like it's always like you pour a very elaborate thing and then you have like a sip or two. I feel like you got to drink that drink.
I feel like you're saying that the only reason you would say that is if you think you're in my will. Because finishing those drinks is not a good idea.
Did any of you go through a martini phase?
I really didn't.
I will do a Gibson. I don't care for olives, but I'll do just with the pearl onion instead of the olive.
I should say, if I'm at a steakhouse, I do like the idea of getting a martini.
I was just about to say, a restaurant always gets me. They're like, what can I get you another drink? I'm like, I see the drink menu that is thick. Like, it has 50 pages of just things that rhyme with like Jamaica, Jamaican pineapple. You're like, I'm fine. Can I just do a martini, please? That's...
Yeah.
But I can appreciate
you do gin or vodka?
I'll do either.
Okay.
I'll do either.
And your podcast, Dos Amigos, is recorded in your Speakeasy, Wilmer. Is that in your home?
Yes. I actually hijacked that basement before the baby got here. I knew that we were planning a baby, and I said I have to do something down here before this becomes something else. And so I attacked that room with an unnecessary speakeasy. And you have to go through the laundry room to get there. Guys, like a speakeasy.
Yep, nope, it's great. I would have been very upset if there was a easy to find door.
Yes, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. So as we say here in the speakeasy industry. But so we built this thing, and I had a bunch of gatherings there, a couple of my birthdays there, and it's like not big, but it's like unnecessarily elaborate, right? Like it has the gold leaf like roof, and it has the indigo walls, and I had like 30 years of newspaper headlines that I bought for $100 from some guy's garage sale, and it was from like Tyson biting the ear to like. To Kobe Bryant joining the Lakers, you name it, right? It was in headlines. So I plaster all over one big wall, and so it gives me topics of conversation. Anyways, what I'm saying is, it's a worldly place. So when we started thinking about like, okay, well, why should we set this up? And like Freddie and I had some great conversations there. We thought, hey man, like. Now that I have a 4-year-old, this room is really not getting used. So we now really we made it into our little podcast home.
I just want to picture you in a smoking jacket, holding a glass of, holding your martini and saying, "Shall we walk over to the headline wall? Should we take a trip down memory lane and stop by the headline wall?" Yes.
You know me well enough to know that that's how it started. That absolutely had the smoker jacket, absolutely had the loafers, okay, that I leave at the entrance of the laundry room. And I walk in barefoot because I like to feel grounded when I partake in my libations. But I definitely started out that way. I had all the accessories. You know,
so
do
fantastic.
I regret
And
it?
a stage,
No.
and a stage, and a stage.
I have
You
a little
staged?
stage, a little side stage.
He has a stage with a piano.
Little fun fact, Sheila E. for my birthday gave me
out.
2 of her bongos. And she signed the bongos and everything. I have her bongos in the corner. I have a little piano for whenever Josh want to come and play.
Oh, yeah, tickle the ivories
God,
for
he's
you.
so good. He's really good. I don't know if people know
what
how
is
good he is.
the most people that could be there where it would be a comfortable, good time?
If you believe anything is possible. So I would say...
Spoken like a man who built a speakeasy because he was worried it would turn into a playroom.
Yeah. So I would say the most packed that it's ever been, I think I had probably like 65 people in there, but like no walking room. Like everyone had to flow over into the folding chairs of the laundry room. But
very nice though.
But it was a one-time thing when I realized, I now have to implement a minimum and maximum capacity sign on this thing because it just made no sense.
It's very smart to once you turn a space into a podcast, I think that then at least takes away the ability for a family member to say you're wasting the space.
Absolutely. I have checkmate that part of my equation for sure.
Yeah. Hey, Freddie, since your kids are older, what was were you a big family trip as a father? Were you guys a family trip family?
When you were a teen dad?
Yeah, exactly. No, when I was a teen, I was 19 when the oldest was born. A lot of it in the beginning was just trying to scrounge up enough money to feed them, right? But once I started to do okay, we took a family trip we went to Puerto Rico. We did sort of the big sort of pilgrimage out there where my kids got to see where their grandparents were from, which was just awesome. My wife's parents, her dad has just recently passed, but they still live there. So they got to visit them. They got to meet all of my uncles and aunts who still lived out there. We've done all the basic stuff, right? Like Florida.
Yeah. Did you do Disneyland? And asking for myself, what do you think the right age is to bring your kids to Disneyland or Disney World?
Good call. Good question.
He asks it on every podcast now.
It's not good.
To all of our listeners, he's not going to stop asking.
Yeah. Well, and Josh, meanwhile, Josh, who doesn't have kids, is like, what's a good time to get a sauna?
Oh, yeah, I might get a sauna.
Well, because you have a 3-year-old, right?
Yeah. So
I think 3 is very good.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you think the 3-year-old would understand it and enjoy it?
I also have boy, girl, and she is both in birth order and the fact that she's a girl, she's way smarter than that.
Well, dude, 100%. Yeah. 100%. I would say 3. 3 was very, actually, Nakano at 2.5, she was already saying Mickey, right?
Yeah.
So, so as soon as we took her, she was, over the moon.
Yeah.
She was over the moon. She was over the moon.
Right,
she was like,
that's all I need.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
Yeah, my kids, they loved it. They loved it when they still remember it to this day when they were younger.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right.
Seth, is she watching a lot of Disney stuff at all?
Not really. Mostly just Frozen.
Oh, well, yeah. She'll have a great time. She'll recognize everything. But she knew Mickey Mouse. She loved Pluto. She loved everything Minnie. As soon as she saw them, she was freaking out. And I called them by names at 3. So I know for a fact that 3 is a very good time. Anything before 1.5, you're doing it for the picture, and they're just sweating in a stroller. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what's been my discovery. Because we couldn't wait. We're like, we have a kid. Let's take her to Disneyland. Meanwhile, she's passed out for like 3 hours. She's sweating. We're like this, waiting for the ride. Like it's not.
Yeah, you think at that age they don't remember stuff. My youngest son said to me when they were here for the holidays, we have this tradition where we go. Do you know that trail that goes from like Santa Monica to Venice, right on the beach? There's like a bike trail.
Yeah.
And so I would always take them on the bike trail when they were younger. And I remember taking both of my sons, but he had training wheels on his bike. And he must have been like 3-4 years old on training wheels. And I just did it to do it, right? To be a dad. And he recently said, Dad, I remember being on my training wheels and going down this path.
Wow, that's cool.
As a 3. So yeah, you know, you think, oh, I'm taking them to Disneyland, they're not going to remember it, but you just never know at what age it's going to stick in their brain. And yeah.
Yeah, plus it's bragging rights also. It's like you get to tell all your friends, I've been there. Like when you're 5, you're still going to remember you were there when you were 3. And make those kids jealous.
For my daughter, I try to give her like really elaborate Valentine's Day gifts. And like, you know, I'm trying to really set her up to her expectations for guys have to be like really high. And I hope that translates into, you know, into really a pedigree, you know. I think that's kind of what I'm hoping for. So I'm always trying to be like, well, daddy is always going to love you the mostest.
Yeah. I've said to my father-in-law, because he obviously let my wife walk all over him, and the amount I've been like, you did me no favors, buddy. No favors at all. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I don't know. I don't know. I blew it.
Yeah.
You don't have any, but you guys don't have any sisters, right? It's just you.
No. And it's really fun because I had 2 boys that are the same age difference as Josh and I. And it's really, having a daughter is just so fun because for the first time, I'm like, oh, this changes the dynamic.
How was it different for you, Seth?
I mean, it is. I mean, it's so cartoonish how quickly you become a girl dad. And the boys are like, I need your attention too. I'm like, well, go get it somewhere else. But yeah, I mean, she is. We were so burnt out from the first 2. If she hadn't been like the easy kid she is, I think it would have torn the family apart. And I think she just was like, all right, I'll be chill. I think she's going to probably be a lunatic when she's a teenager, but right now she's very chill.
No, that's what everyone predicts.
That's true.
Yeah. She's like, don't worry. I'm not going to be easy forever.
I'm coming. I'm just hanging out right now.
You guys, it's just a delight to talk to you both, and we cannot thank you enough for your time.
Thank you both so much, and
thanks for having us.
But you're not off the hook yet because Josh is going to ask you some questions real quick.
All right, some quick hitters here, boys. You can only pick one of these. Is your ideal vacation relaxing, adventurous, or educational?
I'm going to nerd out and say educational. I'm the nerd that goes to like each city and goes like on those tours, those historical tours where you have a guide explaining everything to you. Like I love to nerd out on trips.
I have no choice. It has to be adventurous because my wife is the adventure connoisseur. Yeah. She like wants to go on the hike, and she's done the research. So by the time we get to a destination, we already have an itinerary. So like, relaxation is it's like the flight over when we're both passed out like this, you know.
Gotcha. What is your favorite means of transportation? Train, plane, automobile, boat, bike, walking?
I just spent 5 years in New York, and I took the train a lot, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And all I would hear is people go, "Ugh, I hate taking the train in New York. I hate it." It just reminds me.
You talk about the subway real quick?
The subway, yeah, the subway, yeah. It just reminded me of living in Chicago again. You know, taking the blue line downtown, and I love taking the subway.
I love it too, and I agree with you. Yeah. I mean, again, obviously it's gnarly and bad things are happening on the subway, but if you have a good subway ride, it's the best way to travel.
Yeah.
Also, I just flew into JFK last week and was coming to visit you, Seth, and the train was the fastest way to get to your house.
Yeah. Oh my God! Right.
Yeah, it was a snap. So easy.
Right.
Wilmer?
I would say we like a road trip here. We like getting in a car and driving. You know, she's a big driver. She loves driving across state lines. But I would also say, I think we've kind of, I don't want to say we mastered it, but we kind of have an art to these flights now. And our daughter is so manageable, and we travel so much with her, and she was such a great traveler that we really enjoyed the plane. Like just the humming of the engine, the relaxation of the so we really enjoy that.
Great. All right. This one gets a little trickier. If you could take a family vacation with any family, alive or dead, real or fictional, other than your own family, what family would you like to take a family vacation with?
If my pop was alive, I'd love to I never got to go back to where he grew up, and I never got to see it through his eyes. I would have loved.
It's a great pick.
I would have loved to have done that.
That's really good. I would say, I'm going to go on the same tip, because as soon as you said that, my mother-in-law, who's no longer with us, she passed of ovarian cancer, I think like 8-9 years ago, about 9 years ago, closer to 10. I heard she was such a ride and so fun, and also loved martinis. So I felt like her and I would have been wilding out if we were on a vacation together, so that would have been my choice.
Great. If you had to be stranded on a desert island with one member of your family, who would it be?
My wife.
Smart. Freddie taking the smart path. Good work.
No, man. Listen, I've been this December, I'll be married 30 years, and
amazing.
She's the rock of this family. She's the strongest and most focused human being I've ever been around. So I'd be on an island, and she'd figure it all out before I did.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, same. Because my wife is an island and mountain. Like she'd be building the fire, and I'd be like, "You did it, honey. You did it."
Meanwhile,
like, baby, you caught the first fish, and we're gonna live.
And then you're like, I found a part of the island I want to build a speakeasy.
Yeah.
Like, Wilmer, we don't need a speakeasy.
I know it's a cave and it would be perfect for us to be sheltered from all the weather, but I really think you'd make a great speakeasy.
Yes.
And we need a stage. We need a stage with Chili's bongos.
All right, Freddie, you're from Chicago's your hometown, yeah?
Yeah.
Would you recommend Chicago as a vacation destination?
Yes, absolutely. I didn't appreciate the city until I left.
All right.
I left when I was 19. Back then, Bucktown was not what it is today. It was a pretty bad neighborhood when I left. And when I came back, I was like, oh, this is kind of nice.
Yeah.
And then I bought a place there, and I got to spend time there as an adult, and when my kids were growing up, and I was like, whoa, this is really nice. Yeah. Especially when I went to other cities and I got to experience other cities and other states, and I came to have this new profound appreciation for my town, for Chicago. So yes, strongly recommend.
That's great. And Wilmer, do you consider your hometown this little town in Venezuela, or?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I've acquired, multiple, right? Because my hometown is really LA now, because I've been in LA, I think, longer than I was in Venezuela now, officially.
Right.
So I'm an LA guy. But I would say that, like, in the name of exoticness, I would say that, Acarigua Araure, Estado Portuguesa, which is the smaller town 4 hours south of Caracas, closer to the Amazons in Venezuela, I would say it's a pretty beautiful rainforest type of, destination. It's just like a really beautiful center of the country stuff, like when you see animals you've never seen in books before. It's like really, really a beautiful place to visit, I would say. Yeah.
When's the last time you were there? Was it when you were 13?
No, it was a little, I was probably 25, 26. Okay. And I went out there to do this little, I returned home, and I had a camera crew and the whole thing, and incredibly emotional. And since then, the country has had an unfortunate, trajectory. So it's almost impossible to visit right now. And so I haven't been able to go back in a long time, and I'm hoping that I can bring my family at some point soon, and that the Venezuela gets it together in a way that, that people can return and visit who they're from too, so.
Yeah. And then Seth has our final questions.
Gentlemen, have you been to the Grand Canyon?
I have not.
I have.
All right. So, Freddie, my question for you is, do you want to go?
I'd love to go. Yeah.
And then Wilmer, for Freddie, is it worth it?
Yes.
All right.
Really? Yeah.
Yes. Also, we drove through that when we first came to the United States.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Look at that.
And that was one of those things where I was like, it's you're in a different planet. It feels like you're definitely not in the same planet. It's really
like, this place has hamburgers, RoboCops, and massive holes.
Massive holes, exactly.
Can you camp there? Can you like stay the night?
Yeah, there's campsites all around you.
Yeah.
So cool. So cool.
Absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Well,
Great.
this is fantastic. Talking to you guys, it makes sense. You have a podcast. You got an incredible vibe. Now I'm starting to wish I had been, that you had been in coach and I had been the third seat in your row.
We're very grateful to both of you guys. You guys are so dear to me, by the way. You guys have always been such class, beautiful men and through the trajectory of my career and my life. So, Josh, we have a connection that we should not speak of because this room does not appreciate it, and to say the least. And Seth, I've always respected you and admire you so much. You're just a shit, man. I love you.
Well, thank you guys. What a delight. And be well. Love to your families. Congratulations again, Wilmer.
All right.
Awesome. Hope you guys enjoy the podcast. See you guys.
Thanks, fellas.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Family trips with the Meyers brothers.